Aerospace engineering is a field, as you know, it's just turning 100 years old. Orville and Wilbur Wright flew their 22nd flight in the early 1900s. So we're about 120 odd years since the very first mechanical bird really took off. Um, Tell us a little bit about the evolution of aerospace engineering historically, and we'll get into where the world is today.
Well, I think if you went back uh, prior to 1903, there were several attempts at flying birds. And first of all, I think aerospace engineering is not just about planes. So there are a bunch of things that we have to look at. One is planes. The other one is engines that actually happen a little later. Rockets have actually been around for about 1,000 years plus. That's why I want to dial back. And then of course we have satellites. We could have other kinds of heavier than air aircraft called helicopters. Now we have drones. We have a new breed of aircraft called EVTOLs. That could be hypersonic, let's say a runway to an orbit kind of thing that transcends air and goes to space. There are lots of such kinds of different vehicles and craft that all form aerospace. But if you want to actually look at modern aerospace, there are times like from the days of Leonard Euler, where there have been attempts to develop heavier than air aircraft. So the phrase heavier than air is something that keeps coming up in this parlance, because balloons, for example, hot air balloons, blimps, all of them also actually count for aerospace. And they are what we call as a lighter than air category. There is a lot of science that has happened before Wilbur and Orville Wright. There were quite a few attempts that happened, and subsequently the Wright brothers cracked it. But alongside Wright brothers, there were quite a few others who were just about successful within a few years across the Atlantic. On the European side, there are people who talk about Indians who have also been doing that around that time. But all of these were actually with piston engines. But the next big effort was actually to get jet engines. Around the same time, missiles were actually being developed. The Vengeance weapon, the V2 bomber, during the Second World War was actually a turning point, which was the one that actually got ICBMs happen. And one of those ICBMs was tipped spaceward in 1958 to put Sputnik, and then the space age was dawned. And so effectively, even today, most of our rockets are actually have their pedigree from missiles. And in that sense, they're not really the best aerospace vehicles, so to speak. We can talk about that a little later. But then we have the rocket age that happened. Then came the satellites. Alongside, we actually had the helicopters. And today we are talking about having hypersonic vehicle that will take you from, let's say, Chennai to San Francisco in 4 hours. Those kinds of things, right? So, yeah.